been a while since I've done any kind of an instructional video. This is one that I use all the time and refer to all the time, but I realize that when I'm tying patterns macro, it can be very difficult, impossible to see what I'm talking about. And I often talk about, oh, okay, I'm going to throw my thread on my bobbin cradle. The bobbin cradle for me is, I just love it. I use it all the time. So here we have, I'm not going to be tying up any kind of a pattern. We'll put a few materials on, but really this is just to talk about bobbin cradles, and they all pretty much look and work the same. So mine is right here, and so I will lift it up into position, kind of like this, and basically you're usually allowed to kind of, pull it out, make it further out, or push it in and make it a little bit closer. You can turn it down and move it out of your way. I can pivot it this way and move it out of my way, and just pivot it back when I need it. So this is a position that I will usually use. In this case, let's do one where I just plain and simply am doing this to keep my thread out of the way. So I've just got myself a piece of peacock curl here, and way too much thread. So I'm going to wind that back down a little bit. I'm just going to tie this in. Again, I'm not tying a pattern or anything here, so this isn't meant to be nifty or neat or a nice looking pattern. So after I've got my material tied in, it's going to take 1 or 2 turns here, and that's about all I need. I'm going to move my bobbin cradle now over into position, and then I've got to get my thread long enough that it will hang over that. So I'll just go ahead and give myself a little bit of extra thread, and this thread is just going to sit in that groove, just like that. So that's a bobbin cradle, and I refer to it all the time when I'm tying that. Oh, I'm throwing it in my bobbin cradle. This is what a bobbin cradle is. So in some cases I'll use it just to keep that thread out of the way, so I can work better. So I can just like take this peacock curl by hand and kind of move it up the shank of the hook here, without having my thread dangling right here in my way. It's completely out of my way at this point. So once I get, however much material I want, I'll usually keep the tension on the material so it doesn't come unwound. I'll actually pivot my bobbin cradle out of the way. I'm going to tighten my thread up a little bit. I don't need that much length. And then I'm going to tie the material off with a few thread wraps. So that's one way that I use the bobbin cradle, is to just plain and simply move my thread out of the way, so that I can tie things around the shank of the hook with my hands. So still on the same idea, this time we're going to do a hackle, just a piece of hackle that I had sitting next to me here. So I'm going to go ahead and tie that hackle in. Go ahead and cut off the stem. Again, I'm not making a fly, I'm just trying to demonstrate the bobbin cradle, but I am a little OCD, so I do want to cut that stem off. I just can't help myself. Grab my whip finisher, or again, you could use your finger half hitch, or wrap it around your finger, stick your finger on the eye of the hook, and let that thread slide off. Now I've got a half hitch in place. So if you don't want to reach and grab your whip finisher, that's one way of doing it. So I've got my half hitch in place, so that as I rotate, this time we're going to rotate our vise. I move my bobbin cradle back into position, So you can see I've just pivoted it. I'll give myself that extra length so that it will drape over the bobbin cradle. So again, and I say this all the time as well, I'm hands-free at this point. I can now grab my hackle. I'm so much freer to work with my material now. And it's such an easy tool to grab hold of and use. And we'll just go ahead and grab a hackle plier here. Let's go ahead and get this puppy connected there. I like to use a hackle plier a lot when I'm using wrapping hackle, just because, you know, I get a straighter wrap. So I've got the rotating feature of my vise enabled. So here I can now just spin and move that hackle up the shank of my hook. And my thread is out of the way because it's hanging on my bobbin cradle. I don't have to worry about it. It's not winding up on the shank of the hook because I put the half hitch in it. I get my hackle to where I want it. Then I'm going to go ahead, let my thread off of the bobbin cradle. I'm going to move that bobbin cradle out of the way. Still holding tension on that hackle fiber. And then I'll just take a thread wrap or two over the top of that hackle. And then maybe a wrap or two on the other side. Again, I'm not going for neatness. This is not any sort of a pattern whatsoever. At that point I can let go. But that way you can see I've used the bobbin cradle in a way where I could use the rotating feature without having my thread wrap itself all the way up and over the fly. So yeah, that looks messy, but that's okay, because that's not the purpose here is not to make a really cool looking fly. It's more to show you. So I'm going to go ahead and go backwards and make this even uglier. So let me show you what I was talking about. If I don't put a half hitch in this, and there are a lot of tires that don't, and that's fine. But if I don't put a half hitch in here and I start using my rotating feature, what you're going to notice as I do this is, look what happens to my thread. That's why I prefer to put a half hitch in. You can actually easily put some extra thread wraps on knowing it's going to do that and not put a half hitch in, but since it takes literally half of a second to put in a half hitch, I just prefer to do that. I'll use my whip finisher, or I can just go like that, and actually one half hitch is fine, and you can see how quickly you can actually get those into place, move your bobbin cradle into place, and you're good to go. So that's the bobbin cradle. A great accessory for your vise. It just attaches down here on the stem of my vise here. I've got several vises and different bobbin cradles that will fit on different vises, but this is one of those tools that I do use all the time, and so I wanted to at least take a moment today and show you how that works, why I use it, and how it's used.